Most people today wouldn't fail Miyamoto Musashi's discipline because it's impossible. They would fail because it asks for something modern life has trained us to avoid: discomfort, silence, and self-control. Musashi lived without convenience, without constant reassurance, and without excuses. He trained his mind in isolation, hunger, fatigue, and uncertainty, not as punishment, but as preparation. While modern people panic when routines break or comfort disappears, Musashi built a system that functioned best when everything went wrong. This video is not meant to inspire you. It is meant to confront you. Because if these ideas feel extreme, outdated, or too much, that reaction itself proves how far the modern mind has drifted from discipline. Musashi didn't ask whether something felt good. He asked whether it made him stronger, clearer, and harder to break. And that difference in thinking is why his system still unsettles people centuries later. Miyamoto Musashi was not just an undefeated samurai. He was a ruthless observer of human weakness. He understood that the greatest enemy was not the man across the battlefield, but the mind that seeks comfort, validation, and emotional safety. Near the end of his life, Musashi wrote down his personal code, not as advice for others, but as rules he held himself to without exception. There was no room for motivation, mood, or preference. Only discipline. In TS video, we are not romanticizing samurai life or borrowing aesthetic philosophy. We are breaking down a disciplined system designed for survival in chaos and exposing why it clashes so violently with modern habits. This system removes emotional crutches, strips away ego, and demands responsibility for every reaction you have. It doesn't care about balance or happiness. It cares about clarity and control. As you listen, don't ask whether you like these rules. Ask why they make you uncomfortable. Because the parts of Musashi's discipline modern people can handle are often the exact parts the mind needs most. Musashi's discipline begins with something modern. People resist instinctively. Radical acceptance of reality, not optimism, not positivity. Acceptance without emotional commentary. Musashi understood that the mind wastes enormous energy arguing with what already exists. Complaining, resenting, wishing none of these change reality, but all of them weaken perception. In combat, resisting reality meant hesitation. Hesitation meant death. So Musashi trained himself to meet every situation exactly as it was, without emotional friction. Pain existed, hunger existed, danger existed. None of it required reaction beyond intelligent action. Modern people, by contrast, fight reality constantly. We argue with delays, mistakes, criticism, unfairness, and uncertainty. This emotional resistance fragments attention and drains focus. Musashi's system eliminates this weakness by refusing emotional negotiation. Acceptance does not mean submission, it means clarity. When you stop emotionally resisting reality, the mind becomes quiet. Quiet minds adapt faster. They see options others miss. This rule feels unbearable to modern people because it removes the comfort of complaint. You no longer get to feel justified in your suffering. You must act. Anyway, radical acceptance forces responsibility. Nothing is someone else's fault in your internal world. Reality simply is, and your task is to move within it efficiently. That demand alone is enough to repel most people. They would rather be emotionally right than mentally effective. Musashi eliminated dependence on comfort, because comfort dulls alertness. His disciplined system treated ease as a liability, not a reward. When the body becomes accustomed to softness, the mind loses edge. Musashi lived deliberately, rough sleeping wherever he could, eating little, avoiding luxury notes as a fare. But to remain sharp, modern life is engineered for comfort at every level. Temperature, entertainment, food, stimulation, all instantly available. But comfort has a cost. It lowers tolerance for discomfort, and with it, discipline collapses. The modern mind panics when conditions are imperfect. Musashi's mind functioned best when conditions were harsh. His system trained adaptability by removing reliance on ease. If hunger did not disturb him, hunger could not control him. If fatigue did not break him, fatigue could not defeat him. Comfort dependence creates fragility. Remove comfort, and the person collapses. Musashi designed a mind that could operate regardless of conditions. That is why modern people resist this rule. It threatens their sense of entitlement. It exposes how much of their confidence is conditional. Musashi's discipline does not care how you feel. It asks only one question. Can you function when conditions are unfavorable? If not, the system rejects you. Musashi's discipline required emotional detachment under pressure, something modern culture actively Today, emotions are treated as truth. If you feel angry, you are justified. If you feel offended, you are validated. Musashi saw emotions as weatherial, but unreliable. To obey emotion was to surrender command of the self. In battle, fear distorted judgment. Excitement caused overextension. Anger created predictability. Musashi trained himself to observe emotion without acting on it. He did not suppress feelings. He simply refused to let them decide. This emotional distance created an inner stillness others mistook for coldness. In reality, it was control. Modern people struggle with this rule because emotional expression has become identity. To detach feels like erasing the self. But Musashi understood something crucial: emotions. Past consequences remain. Acting from emotional clarity rather than emotional impulse is what makes a person dangerous in chaos. This rule dismantles reactivity. No impulsive messages, no rash decisions, no emotional overcorrection. Just observation, pause, and deliberate action. For modern minds trained on instant reaction, this feels unnatural, almost cruel. But it is precisely this discipline that prevents regret, escalation, and loss of control. Musashi demanded ego reduction because ego narrows vision. A mind obsessed with self-image cannot perceive reality clearly. Pride distorts judgment. Shame creates hesitation. The desire to appear strong creates weakness. Musashi lived without concern for appearance. He was known to look unrefined, even crude. But his awareness was sharp because it wasn't trapped inside his identity. Modern culture encourages constant self-focus branding, validation, reputation. This produces anxiety and defensiveness. Musashi's system dismantles this entirely. Think lightly of yourself, deeply of the world. When ego shrinks, perception expands. Criticism becomes information. Praise becomes noise. The self stops demanding protection. This rule is unbearable to modern people because it removes the shield of identity. You cannot hide behind your self-image. You must see clearly, even when it threatens your pride. Ego reduction makes learning unavoidable. That discomfort is why most people reject it. Musashi detached from outcomes because attachment breeds fear. When success becomes identity, failure becomes terror. Musashi focused exclusively on execution. Outcomes were external. Effort was internal. This separation created freedom. He could act fully without being mentally crippled by result anxiety. Modern people attach self-worth to results: money, status, approval. This makes action hesitant and fearful. Musashi's system cuts this chain. You do the work. You release the outcome. Fear dissolves because there is nothing to lose internally. This rule feels dangerous to modern minds because it removes emotional guarantees. There's no reassurance of success, only responsibility for effort. But this is what creates calm under pressure. When outcome stops controlling emotion, action becomes clean and decisive. Musashi rejected regret because it poisons the present. Reflection was allowed. Self-punishment was not. Regret locks attention in the past and drains energy from the moment that matters. Modern people replay mistakes endlessly, mistaking rumination for responsibility. Musashi viewed this as weakness. Once the lesson was extracted, the event was finished. This rule demands emotional finality. You do not get to relive failure for comfort. You move forward, sharpened, not burdened. For modern minds addicted to self-criticism, this feels irresponsible. But Musashi knew that progress requires momentum, not guilt. Musashi isolated himself from comparison because comparison fractures focus. Watching others creates either envy or arrogance, both distractions. Musashi walked his path alone. Modern people live surrounded by metrics of other success. This creates constant mental noise. Musashi's discipline removes this entirely. Your path is your responsibility. Others are irrelevant. This rule feels unbearable because it removes external reference points. You must define progress internally. That level of self-accountability is rare. Finally, Musashi treated calm as a weapon. Calmness was not temperament, it was training. While others panicked, he observed. While others rushed, he waited. Calm allowed perception. Perception allowed control. Modern life rewards urgency, reaction, and speed. Musashi's system rejects all three. Calm under pressure is the final test of discipline. If you cannot remain still when things go wrong, the system has failed. This is why modern people struggle with Musashi's discipline. It offers no comfort, no validation, and no escape, only control. And control is something most people are no longer trained to handle. Miyamoto Musashi did not create this discipline system to be admired, shared, or selectively followed. He lived it without negotiation. That is why it still feels severe, even offensive, to the modern mind. These rules offer no emotional comfort, no reassurance, and no excuses. They remove the safety nets. We have grown dependent on validation, pleasure, distraction, and blame. What remains is responsibility. Complete responsibility for your reactions, your focus, and your inner state. Most people reject this not because it is wrong, but because it is demanding. It forces you to confront how much of your life is shaped by comfort rather than control. This system is not outdated. It is simply incompatible with a world that prioritizes ease over strength. Modern life has made discipline optional, but the consequences of a weak mind have not disappeared. Anxiety, distraction, overreaction, and constant mental noise are the modern battlefield. Musashi's discipline was built for chaos, and chaos still exists only. Now it lives inside the mind. These rules do not promise happiness. They offer something more durable. Clarity under pressure. And clarity is what allows a person to move through life without being pulled apart by it. You do not need to adopt all of this at once. In fact, the rule you resist the most is the one revealing your weakest point. Discomfort is not a signal to stop, it is a signal that training has begun. Musashi did not seek comfort at the end of his life. He sought mastery. And mastery is quiet, lonely, and unforgiving. But it is also stable. If you can remain calm where others panic, detached where others cling, and focused where others scatter, you will carry an advantage that requires no explanation. This discipline was never meant for everyone. It was meant for those willing to be uncomfortable in order to become unbreakable.